As you prepare to create a website in Dreamweaver, or in any application for that matter, one of the most important things that you can do to start out is to create a site folder. Your site folder is going to be the place where you manage all the files, all the assets for your website. So the very first thing you should do is create a site, create a folder to keep your items in. And then, as you go into Dreamweaver, and we have Dreamweaver 2017 here on the screen, as you go into Dreamweaver, the first thing you want to do before you even really get started is you want to create a site or define a site. And what that means in Dreamweaver, for Dreamweaver, is that there are tools embedded in Dreamweaver to manage the relationship between your files. And it's an incredibly useful tool, and it can save you a lot of headaches down the road. Also, if you don't do it, Dreamweaver can be a little bit unpleasant about how it manages your files sometimes. So for the good and the bad, it's best to always define your site before you do anything else. And so I'm just going to kind of run through this process real quick. In Dreamweaver 2017, if you're getting started here, or if you're coming back to an existing project that for whatever reason wasn't previously defined, you just go over here into the Files panel, and if that's not showing, you can go under Windows and you should see Files right here. Check F8. So anyway, you go here and you click Manage Sites, and it'll bring up the Manage Sites window or dialog box, and you're simply going to create a new site. And it only takes two things. In this case, what we're going to work with is the files that came with the lynda.com series, Chapter 2, Folder 5. So we're going to call this 02_05. And so that's going to be our site name. Your site name doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't show up anywhere where anybody else can see it. So you can name your site anything you want. I recommend using a name that's meaningful. You know, if you're doing it for a client, maybe it's the client name. Whatever is going to be the name associated with the project. But then the second thing that is necessary here is your local site folder. So you can click on this folder icon to browse, and then you're going to navigate to the location of your site folder. So if you haven't created a site folder yet, you could go to the place that you will eventually want it to be and right-click and create a new folder. In this case, we're going to use existing files, so I'm just going to navigate to those existing files, which I have kept here, that had been downloaded from Lynda. And I'm going to find Chapter 2, Section 5, and this becomes, this is going to be the folder that I want to be my site folder. So I'm going to select it, and that's all I need to define a site. I just say Save and Done. And what happens is you'll see that all of those files and folders are now cached to this Files panel within Dreamweaver. The great part about this is that all of the HTML files that are associated with this site and all of the other assets like CSS, external style sheets, images, JavaScripts, anything else that's associated with this site are all managed or contained here in this folder. In addition to simply containing your files, other things happen as well. So let's say, for instance, I've got this file right here called Rooms. So this site, I'm sure you've seen it in Lynda, but this site is a hotel website, and so it's got several pages related to the Landon Hotel. So let's say that this page right here called Rooms, which kind of showcases the different sorts of hotel rooms you can rent. Let's say this Rooms right here was going to change its name. You wanted to change its name for whatever reason. So we click on here and maybe we change Rooms to Guest Rooms. And as soon as we click off of that, you get this dialog box. And basically what this dialog box is telling you is that all of these other files, attractions, dinings, events, index, and info, each one of these files has one or more links to the rooms.html file that you're trying to change the name of. And so without Dreamweaver, if I were to make this change, all of these links would break. With Dreamweaver, if I make this change, I get the dialog box that says, hey, you're about to break all these links. Would you like to update these links? And if you click this update button, the links that exist in all of these files to the rooms.html file will automatically update to a link to guestrooms.html instead, without me having to go seek out every instance in every file. It'll just do it for me site-wide. So I hit update, it's updated. Now, the great thing about that is if I didn't have Dreamweaver, I would be hunting through several HTML files, looking through all the code, trying to find every instance of it. I wouldn't even get a warning, so I might not even know it. I broke it until the site was live and things suddenly don't work. So that's one of the reasons, that's one of the most important reasons that you want to always define your site, because if you don't, that functionality doesn't exist. You've got to define your site. All right, while we're still here, I did want to point out some other tools. So we happen to have this file open, which is now called guestrooms.html. Down here in the bottom corner of this panel down here is the real-time preview. I just wanted to show you that if you click on that, it'll give you a list of installed browsers where you can preview this site in a real browser. Now, yes, we have live view inside Dreamweaver, and it works, and it's just fine, but it's good practice to always check all of your designs in all of the common browsers so that you can make absolutely sure that there's nothing tricky going on where something's going to break in an old version of IE or something like that. So the cool thing about this is that it's a live view. That's why it's called a real-time preview. So notice, like, this is called guest rooms. Well, what if I went up here? I'm going to have a hard time showing you both of these on the screen at the same time because my monitors are so small. I'll give it a shot. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I got a piece of it on here anyway. This one is reverted to its smaller view, and because it's got a media query for a mobile phone size. But regardless, you can see here's the title guest room, and here's the title guest room, and this is the same page. So what if you went up here and you took out the word guest? Well, working with text is fun here. Okay, you took out the room guest. Look what happens. It's gone over here. So you can, and I haven't even saved the page in Dreamweaver. So that's why they call it real-time preview. You can see what happens on the fly as you make changes in Dreamweaver in a real live browser, which is kind of nice. Okay. All right, let me get back to a reasonable view here. Another thing I wanted to point out about this real-time preview is that yes, you have all of these different browsers to choose from, but you can also preview on a device. Looks like it's currently unavailable for some reason, but apparently if I were to restart, this would become available. And what's interesting about it is that when it's working, it gives you a QR code. So if you have a QR reader on your phone, you can just snap that, and your phone browser will go directly to that link. If you don't have a QR reader on your phone, you can get one for free, but there's also a URL that shows up here. And so you could type that in on your phone, and it would take you to the live preview. And yes, it's on your phone, but it continues to be real time. So as you make changes here, it updates on the phone. Pretty amazing. Okay, let's do this. We're going to, I'm going to take a step farther here than Linda did. And what we're going to do is we're going to define our remote server. Okay, so it doesn't matter if these files are open or not. Do you want to save the changes? No. Save changes? No. All right. What I wanted to show you here is that defining a site allows this file management window to work locally. But what if you're ready to upload to a web server? In order to do that, you have to define that web server. So in the Files menu, if you click on Define Servers, it's going to go directly to the page that you need. I just also want to show you, though, that alternatively, if you go here under your list of sites, so if you have multiple sites defined, they'd all show in this menu. If you go here and just double click on this site, it'll take you to your site definition page that we were on earlier. And within your site definition page, here's a button for servers. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and define a server, and the way you do it is you hit the plus sign right here, and it asks you about information regarding the web server that you're going to use. So in this class, you've all been assigned web accounts, and the web server we're going to use comes from the Cisco program, so I'm just going to call it Cisco. Again, this name is just for your own reference. It doesn't do anything referring to the transfer. The next box here is the protocol, what protocol is in use. FTP has been industry standard for a long time, but the problem is that file transfer protocol, FTP, is not secure. It transfers in plain language, and it could get hacked. So we're going to click on this drop down, and we're going to choose SFTP. SFTP is Secure File Transfer Protocol, and it is encrypted, so your data will be scrambled before being sent across the internet to that server, and that's just a security measure. Okay, so our SFTP address is cisco.estrellamountain.edu. Okay, now we're just going to use authentication username and password. Our username, your username is going to be your MEID. But because you probably already have an account on this server using your MEID as your account name, what was I going to say? Because you already have that happening, right? I don't want to clobber one account with another. So I've actually created an additional account for you, and the new account is the same, but it's got DW at the end. DW for Dreamweaver. Okay? So my fictional account here is going to be an MEID that might look something like that, and then DW. And then the password is going to be the same thing, the whole MEID with a DW at the end, plus the $sign. Okay, mine's a little different just because I've gotten a structure account, but yours is going to be the same exact thing, including the DW at the end with a $sign. Now at this point you can hit the test button, and the very first time I did this on campus in this version of Dreamweaver, it didn't actually have anything to do with this version of Dreamweaver. It had to do with Windows 10. Windows 10 popped up an active Windows firewall and told me that this connection may be blocked by the firewall, and it let me as the administrator choose to allow it. So if you get a firewall pop up at this point, go ahead and allow it. And then if all goes well, you should see this message: Dreamweaver connected to your web server successfully. Okay, good job. So say okay. Now, one thing to be concerned about is your web account. When you access it, you can actually save files to your account that are not live to the internet. But if you want them to be live to the internet, they have to go into a specific folder. We refer to that folder as your web root. And the name of that folder is public_HTML. So right here where it says root directory, you should be typing public_HTML. And that tells it what folder on your server account to focus on. Now here's the one thing that's a little bit irritating. If you click off of that field, right, it's going to update this web URL to include public_HTML. Now there's two problems with this web URL. One, your account includes your account name, and that's not listed here. The second problem is that your account does not include public_HTML. That's your web root, and it's invisible, so you don't include it in the URL. So your URL should actually look something like this. It has a tilde and then your MEID. Okay. So that's what your web account your web URL should look like. Now, does this matter? Not really. All this does is give you access to previewing it from a live server within Dreamweaver. You could just type in that URL in any browser and get the same result. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And save, and it gives me it gives you this message that your cache is being updated. So just go ahead and say okay to that. Not like you have a choice. Okay, so this doesn't look much different now that we've defined a server, but notice this: you now have a choice of local view, remote server, or testing server. And so if you wanted to connect to the remote server, you could just click on remote server, and it goes ahead and connects. You see this little icon right here? Right now, that little icon is it's like a plug plugged in. Makes me think of Back to the Future when Doc Brown is hanging from the clock and the lightning's about to strike, and he's got to take those two plugs and force them together. Anyway, they've been forced together here, so you are connected. You're connected by virtue of clicking on remote server, right? But if you want to disconnect, you can click on that, and it breaks the connection. Okay, so that's one way to connect. Another way to connect is, oh, let me get back to local server. Another way to connect, I really like this box, which is to expand the file panel, and it takes up the whole window here, right? And the cool thing about this is that you can see your local site and your web server account at the same time. So that's pretty great. Okay, so on your web server account, your remote server account, it puts you into an account. Now, just to explain this, right? Your account starts with your MEAD. It starts here, okay? And then within your account, you have a folder called public_HTML, which is your web root. So that's the only portion that you need to be concerned with. As it happens on the server, your account is organized underneath our class name, and the class name is organized underneath my name, and my name is in the home directory. So that's why you have that full path that looks like that. Okay, there's a couple of things already in your public_HTML folder. One of them is a placeholder folder called final, and that's just because we know that eventually we're going to have a final exam, and when we do, like a final project, when we do, we're going to put it in that folder. The other thing is called index.html, and as you should know, index.html or index.htm is the file name that represents your home page or your root directory. And so this is a placeholder file. Let me show you real quick. If you were in a web browser and you typed in Cisco, look, it knows me already. If you typed in cisco.australiamountain.edu/tilde and your MEID with a DW at the end and hit enter, it shows under construction. Well, guess what? This file right here, index.html, is the under construction file. If I right click on it and view source, it's just an H1 that says under construction. That's it. Okay. So so anyway, that's a placeholder for that purpose. Now, here's the thing. We could upload this entire 0205 folder into this directory, into the public_HTML directory, and if we did that, it would become your home page, right? Problem is that we're going to use this server for multiple projects. We don't want this to be the only project that shows, okay? And so instead of putting it in the public_HTML folder, we want to create a subdirectory. So the way that you would create a subdirectory is put your cursor right up on that pathway, that public_HTML folder, right click on it, and choose new folder. And a new folder shows up here, and we're going to call it 02_05. Okay, so now you've got a new folder. It's currently empty, but you got a new folder inside the public_HTML directory. Okay, now here's a tricky thing. Over here on the right side are all your files associated with this site, the local site that we created earlier, 02_05, associated with the lynda.com Dreamweaver files that are associated with that class on lynda.com. Now, normally, we would just click on that and hit this upload button, which is actually put. And what that would do is it would put this entire directory on this entire directory full of files and folders. It would put it into your web root. Well, the problem is we defined our web root as public_HTML, and that's not where we want these files to go. Don't do this. I'm just going to illustrate what I'm talking about, but I don't want you to do it, right? So if you click the up arrow, it says, are you sure? Say OK. And it says it's going to overwrite this index.html placeholder file. That's OK. And look, it put the entire site outside of the 0205 folder. Okay, it put it inside public_HTML, but outside the 0205 folder. And so now I got a mess. That's not what I wanted at all. Right? So that's why I told you not to do this. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to delete these, which is a little bit intimidating, but it's okay. It's not affecting my local site. My files are all right. It's just editing what's on the server. Okay. Now you may notice I clobbered my index.html placeholder file. So now I don't have a message that says under construction anymore. All right, two things you could do. One thing is that you could upload all of these files and then drag them into this folder. The other thing you could do is redefine your site. And so that's what I want you to do, is redefine your site. So we're going to reduce our files panel so it comes back over here and break our connection, right? And then we're going to go up into our site management tools, and we're going to click on 0205. It brings up our site definition box. We're going to go to servers and find our Cisco server, click on it, and then we want to hit this little pencil icon, which means that you can edit the definition of your existing server. So we'll do that, and all I want to do is look down here in the root directory, right? I couldn't do this before because the folder didn't exist, but now that the folder exists, I can go down here and I can add to the end of this 02_05, because that folder now exists on the server I just created it a minute ago. All right, and so once I make that change and hit save, and hit save again, then I can go back and expand this window, connect to the server, and notice it put me into the folder called 0205. Perfect. Now I can, on my local files, I can make sure my site folder is selected and hit the put button. Are you sure? Okay. And now it put all of the files associated with this site inside the 0205 folder. Great. Now what I can do is I can pull up a browser. This happens to be Chrome, but it doesn't matter. And if I just go to my server account, forbidden. Okay, I accidentally clobbered the under construction menu, so now I'm just seeing the forbidden because you're not allowed to see the directory through HTTP. But if I add on 02_05 to the URL, bang, there's the site live on the internet. And anything that I had, ooh, that's not good. Anything that I had established on the local site folder should work just fine. That's interesting that that room's link broke, but anyway, that came with lynda.com. I'm not going to worry about that right now. All right. Okay, so that's it. So here's what I want in terms of your assignment. Do please upload this into that folder on the server under your account, just like I've just demonstrated. Additionally, I'd like to see this, right? Because this menu shows us the local site and the server definition all in one place, and it shows us that the files have been appropriately uploaded in the right directory. This shows me everything I need. Okay, so I want you to, at some point when you're done, navigate to this view, and then we're going to take a screenshot. So if I'm in Windows 10 right now, in Windows 10, if you go under Windows Accessories, you'll find the snipping tool. In Windows 7, it's just under Accessories, right? And then here's the snipping tool, and if you click New, it'll allow you to draw a box over the portion of the screen that you want to capture. So I'm going to get this portion right here. And it takes a picture of it, and then say save, and you can save it as, we'll call it definition. It's not actually the definition, right? It's your site management tools. So let's call it, we'll just call it files, okay? And I'm personally going to save it into my appropriate folder. You can save it where you want. But then that is what you're going to turn in Canvas. So when you look at the Canvas assignment, you'll see that it's asking you, one, for a URL for me to view the site that you've uploaded in the appropriate folder, and two, to turn in the screenshot of this image right here. Okay. Now to back out of this so you can end this assignment, I'm going to reduce this back down to my regular view, and you can undefine the site if you like. Next assignment, you're going to have to define a different one. So we can go ahead and do that. We'll just go to Manage Sites, and here's the site we've been working with, and you simply hit the minus sign. When you do that, it'll ask you if you're sure, say yes, and you haven't lost any of your files or folders from either the local computer or the server. All you've done is you've broken the definition of that site. I didn't even have to do that. I could have just left it and never used it again. But in this case, I got rid of it because the next time you do an assignment, you're going to create a new one anyway. Okay, and why have multiple sitting around? Okay, so I hope that's everything you need. If you have any questions, you need any help, don't hesitate to contact your instructor. Thanks.